indeed going on, Jerome's. So the first day of Senior Bowl practice is in the books, and there are a couple guys who stood out. Now, Senior Bowl, the game really doesn't matter. It's all about practice. Talk about practice. How do you look in one-on-one spots? How do you look interacting with, for some guys, a bump up in competition? How do you look in front of knowing that all the NFL decision makers, scouts, GMs, coaches are just watching, judging? How do you step up, man? So here are 11 guys who stepped up day one that the Vikings maybe should keep their eye on. First up, so Quinyon Mitchell. I love Quinyon Mitchell a lot. I think he has a chance to be cornerback one in this class. Respect to Kool-Aid, Terrian, Wiggins, etc. But Quinyon, I like Quinyon a lot, man. So he's 6 foot, $195. He had 5 picks, 2 pick sixes in 2022, and then teams just stopped throwing at him. But he does have a 95.1 PFF grade since 2022, the highest in college football. And the question was, coming from the MAC, coming from Toledo, having a step up in competition. So this week is big for him. But don't want to say that he's Sauce Gardner adjacent, but Sauce playing at Cincy and then coming on in, being a high draft pick and being that dude right away. Quinyon, I think he has a chance. I think he has a chance to be a legit dude. I love his length on the outside. I think that he's going to be a guy that would fit in perfectly with what Flores wants to do on defense. And frankly, I know it probably won't be popular, but if the Vikings just stick and pick and take Mitchell at 11, depending on what happens in free agency, could be down to clown. Next up, Jackson Powers Johnson. Yes, JPJ Oregon. I did a full video on him yesterday, but I kind of like the idea of building up that ass in the trenches, man. So he's 6'3", he's 320, All-American, 1-year starter at Oregon, yes, but also Remington Trophy winner, and he was just throwing dudes out of the club. He's great in gap, he's great in zone. You do have to take his pass block numbers with a grain of salt because of the Oregon quick throw offense, but he's a guy that's got anchor, and he had himself a day in one-on-ones. He was dominating. He was laying dudes out. He was recovering well. You love that punch. You love everything about JPJ. Latu coming out of UCLA. Now, a little bit older of a prospect. Started at Washington. Medically retired for a hot second. Came back to UCLA. Great couple of years in Westwood, but 6'5", 261. Had himself some good reps as well. And there's not a tier 1 edge in this class. I think the Latu could sneak up there. I do think guys like Dallas Turner from Bama, Jared Verse from Florida State could be in that mix as well. But Latu, I mean, he's going to be a first rounder in all likelihood, and he's going to make a team very happy going forward. 2 wide receivers. So I understand wide receiver isn't necessarily a need, but McConkey, could work his way into day 2. Roman Wilson, mid-round type guy. McConkey, 5'11", $187, and he was just shaking dudes all damn day. And McConkey, coming out of Georgia, had sort of a down year this year, had some injuries, but in 2022 with Stetson Bennett, the second of 2 national title games, 58 catches, 762 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And McConkey, he's got that shake, rattle, and roll, man. And also, he does have positional flexibility. I don't think that he's just a slot or an X or a Z guy. But yeah, this is what happens. So Senior Bowl practice, one-on-ones, where cornerbacks, some cornerbacks are going to be better suited for zone, 3-deep zone. Some guys are going to be better off in off-man situations. But also, of course, there's no safety help over the top. So, you're going to have highlights. And it's exactly like opening a training camp, where a star cornerback will get shaken out of its boots by a UDFA wide receiver. It happens, man. It happens. Now, I still think McConkey should be a mid-round guy. Maybe he works his way into day 2, but we'll see. Wide receiver Roman Wilson on Michigan. So Wilson is kind of like J.J. McCarthy, where maybe the Michigan run-first offense really held them back. But Wilson, 6 foot, $180, 68 catches, 789 yards, and 12 touchdowns in 2023. And he's a zone eater. It feels like he was able to find the dead spots in coverage, and he had some good reps in one-on-ones. There's a lot of Tank Dell comps flying around. Obviously Roman Wilson's 6 foot though. Tank Dell 5'8". But Wilson, I think he could be an intriguing guy. Like, say the Vikings suture up quite a few needs in free agency and hammer the top of the draft, and all of a sudden Wilson is there with one of the 2 Vikings 4th-round picks or 2 5th-round picks. It could be tempting in that spot. Next up, running back Rasheen Ali. Now, Not full contact, obviously practice, talk about practice, but showed some great burst, showed some great patience as well. And Ali's interesting, where if he could have declared after his redshirt freshman season in 2021, he probably would have been a mid-round pick, somewhere in there. But that year he had 1,401 yards rushing, 23 touchdowns. This year, 1,135, 15 tutties, and 5.4 yards per carry for the Thundering Herd. There's a lot of questions about him as a receiver, him being a true three-down back. That's what you want to be. But in terms of, he's got decent bursts, but also he's a very patient runner. I mean, some Le'Veon Bell adjacent type comparisons could be in that mix, but Ali could be very interesting as an early day 3 type guy. Cornerback Cam Hart, who we've talked about ad nauseum, had himself a couple of great reps out there. I mean, Tez Walker, lots of cornerbacks that had some really good reps against Tez Walker, man. But Notre Dame, Cam Hart 6'2" and 7/8, which is important. 7/8 is very important. 204 pounds, length in the outside, positional flexibility. I think that Flores would like him a lot. T'Vondre Sweat, we've talked about ad nauseum, but 6'4", 360, absolute people mover, absolute resetting the line of scrimmage, and he's more than just a run stuffer. Like, he does bring a little bit of pressure and some heat from that nose tackle position. Michael Hall Jr. out of the Ohio State University. Now, Hall would be a little bit more of a sub package guy, but he's 6'2", 280. Did put up 6 sacks and 45 pressures over 2 seasons in Columbus, and he would be a rotational, like, deep day 3 guy, but did have a couple of great reps in the one-on-one spots. Penix Jr. So a lot of the quarterbacks did not have good days. Well, I would say Pratt had a pretty decent one, but Penix doing interviews, saying all the right things, the leadership in and out of the huddles, the pop is still there. I mean, that ball explodes out the left hand, but medicals is going to be the big question. Bo Nix had a day. Joe Milton, nah. Well, wasn't a banner day for the quarterbacks overall. Then lastly, Gabe Hall. I kind of like Gabe Hall. And in terms of like a deep day 3 guy, he's 6'6", he's 290, long arms, does need to fill out weight-wise, but heart and hustle, playing that 4-5 tech spot, 11.5 sacks over his last 3 seasons in Waco. And I think he's a guy that the Vikings could take a look at a little bit later on in the draft, because we got to rebuild that defensive line. We have the meats and go from there. But that's it. That's at, is that 11? 11. Senior Bowl Day 1 crushes for us. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But until next time, Skol, production value.